Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends. We've got Ciliax on the screen, Hipper and Jellicoe as inspirations. This is my full secondary build for the Tier 7 German battleship Bismarck following the secondaries overhaul. Note that I have properly meticulous highlighted, don't have it selected. We'll talk about why once we get into the footage of the game. Here's my mod selection, secondary mods in the first and fourth slots on the Bismarck here. Now, this game is on Greece, and it doesn't really have too terribly much to do with the secondaries. It has more to do with the main guns. For showing off the secondaries, I have clips that will appear later in the video of the secondaries demolishing enemy destroyers. And I'm happy to report that after the secondaries overhaul, it is now a punishable mistake for an enemy destroyer to allow itself to be spotted within range of the Bismarck's secondaries, particularly if they have one of the new enhanced secondary targeting consumables available to use. And that is perhaps the first thing we should get out of the way before we talk about the pros and cons of using Ciliax versus the other commander choices that you might have. I will tell you that I think Ciliax is the optimum commander to use for a full secondary build. Anyway, this new enhanced secondaries targeting consumable, what does it do? Well, when you activate it, it applies 2 bonuses or buffs to your secondary battery. It applies a 100% shell grouping buff to the secondary battery and applies a 50% bonus to the dispersion of the secondary batteries for the duration. Now, what does properly meticulous do? Because properly meticulous is mostly related to the enhanced secondary targeting consumable, among one other thing that it does. So, for its relation to the enhanced secondary targeting consumable, what it does is it increases the duration of the consumable, and I think it might also cut down on the cooldown. Not sure about that one, actually. In any case, the increase to the duration, base duration for the enhanced secondary targeting consumable, 30 seconds. With properly meticulous, at the level I have it, it increases the duration to 36 seconds. So you get 6 seconds longer on the duration of the consumable. Additionally, it decreases the reload time of the secondary batteries. Now, there are 2 gun calibers on the Bismarck's secondaries. It has 105mm guns and 150mm guns. Without properly meticulous applied on your commander, the 105mm guns reload in 2.7 seconds, and the 150mm guns reload in 6 seconds. If you apply properly meticulous, you cut that reload down on the 105s by 0.2 of a second, so it goes from 2.7 to 2.5, and then by half of a second on the 150mm guns, so that's from 6 seconds to 5.5. In order to use properly meticulous, however, you do have to give up access to Master Mechanic, which means you lose the extra heals that you can get on Ciliax. Is that trade-off worth it to increase the duration of the secondaries consumable and to decrease the reload times on the secondary batteries by fractions of a second? I'd say no. You can get along just fine using this Ciliax build with Hipper as an inspiration and the other secondary skill that has always existed, Porcupine. You do that, and you apply the secondary mods in the first and fourth slots, and your secondaries are much more effective than they ever would be. Now, why am I showing you this game in which we've only had 3 secondary hits? Because I do want to talk about why you might be inclined to use Ciliax. I've had somebody ask me why I wouldn't use Hipper for a full secondary build. And the answer is very simple. Hipper, before this secondaries overhaul, only had one skill that applied to secondaries at all, and that was his base trait, which increases the range of the secondaries, and now, after the overhaul, gives a buff to the shell grouping of the secondary shells. And that's great. I have Hipper at level 16, and I have him as an inspiration on Ciliax. The secondaries on the Bismarck are shooting out to 11.3 kilometers with that inspiration. And by the way, on the Xarkun first, they now shoot out to 10.5 kilometers, which is a huge improvement for that ship. Anyway, though, before the overhaul, that base trait is all Hipper had. Now he has access to Properly Meticulous as well, and I've already told you why I don't think that's necessary. What he doesn't have access to is Porcupine. Ciliax, Hyde, and Megatron all have that. So, out of the 4 commanders you could possibly choose for a full secondary build, I think Franz von Hipper is objectively the worst, and he should be relegated as an inspiration for one of the other commanders that you do ultimately choose, whether it's Ciliax, Hyde, or Megatron. Now, you might say that you'd want to use Hipper because of the accuracy buffs to the main guns, and after all, the main guns are still, even after this update, going to do the lion's share of damage. Yes, that is true. The main guns are going to do the lion's share of damage, but even with accuracy buffs, they are still not anywhere near as reliable as the main guns of some other battleships in the game. Let's just say that. Essentially, if you apply accuracy buffs to German battleship guns, you can get slightly more reliability out of them, but ultimately you're still polishing a turd. And you can get along just fine without any accuracy buffs whatsoever applied to your German battleship's main guns. That is why I am showing you this footage. We've racked up 4 citadels and 100,000 damage just with our main batteries, no accuracy buffs applied to it. Obviously, it helps when you're a lot closer and you've got a gigantic target like the Xarkun first to shoot at, but you can get on just fine without any accuracy buffs. Now, if you do want to use Properly Meticulous, either Ciliax or Megatron would be your best choice. Why? Well, that's part of the reason I have Jellicoe as the other inspiration on Ciliax, because I was testing out Properly Meticulous. You do have to give up, as I said, your repair parties or your extra repair parties to use Properly Meticulous, which means you aren't going to get the most out of your heals. In order to get the most out of your heals, you can use the Will to Rebuild legendary skill on either Ciliax or Megatron, which gives a little bit more hit points to you when you activate the repair party. And also, if you put Jellicoe on there, it increases the repair party duration, which ultimately gives you even more hit points. I think the difference is something like 1,000 or a couple thousand hit points. So that is why I think Ciliax essentially is the optimum commander for a full secondary build. You get all the skills, you get Porcupine and Properly Meticulous, you can use Franz von Hipper as an inspiration, and you get Will to Rebuild to maximize the effectiveness of your repair party if you do decide to give up Master Mechanic and use Properly Meticulous, and you can get by just fine with the main guns without applying any accuracy buffs whatsoever. It can be done. You just got to try it. Sometimes your results are not going to be very good at all, and sometimes they're going to be okay. And here is where we're going to transition into seeing the enhanced secondary targeting consumable in action. We've activated it against this Fletcher. We're not firing our main guns. We kind of just want to see what happens with the secondaries here, and they do end up taking him out, or at least the fire that they lit on him takes him out, and the game ends with our victory. And now, as the battle results screen comes up in front of us, we are going to cut to a few clips of this consumable in action. As I said, destroyers can now be punished by the secondaries on the Bismarck, and for that matter, the Grosse Kurfürst. All you have to do is activate the enhanced secondaries targeting consumable and watch the mayhem unfold. Decent result on this battle screen, by the way. We're on 4th on the list, but we've got over 2,000 base XP. Good game. Anyway, here is some footage of the Bismarck coming around the corner on one of these new maps. I can't think of what his name is at the moment, but I've got the sonar active. The sonar spots for me the enemy Akatsuki, who definitely knows I'm here and may be inclined to charge out in front of me. If he does, it'll be a big mistake on his part because I have the secondaries consumable ready and waiting to be activated. Here we are coming around the corner. Akatsuki, he's right in front of us. We activate the consumable, and we are turning in a little bit, but our secondaries smack him in a single salvo and take him out for a close quarters expert. We aren't going to dodge all of his torpedoes, but that's okay. So there's one example, and you might be thinking to yourself, this is kind of a fluke. This is not a scientific sampling, right? Well, I've got more for you. Here we are in the Bismarck on the Greece map. We didn't notice these torpedoes coming at us. This is a big mistake on my part, so I am going to take a lot of damage. But I believe it was that vacuum out there who sent the torpedoes at me, and now it is time for him to be punished as soon as he comes around the corner. Secondaries consumable activated. I'm using properly meticulous in this video. You can tell by the increased duration of the consumable. Hit the vacuum very, very hard with the main batteries, but you can see once these secondaries start to find their mark, they absolutely chew through destroyers now. Take a look at all those damaging hits we're getting, and there he goes, another close quarters expert on a destroyer. But that's not all for this clip, because yet another destroyer is coming around the corner. It's an Akatsuki. We're even further away from him than we were the vacuum, and you can see the secondaries are right on target. The skill has worn off, or rather the consumable has, and the Akatsuki has disappeared around the corner, so we aren't probably going to be able to finish him off there. But we can finish him off later. Same game here, Akatsuki still behind the corner. Notice the cooldown on my enhanced secondaries targeting consumable only has 20 seconds left to go. We're shooting at this Odin out here in the meantime, doing a fair bit of damage to him. Obviously, we're not in the absolute best shape of our lives in terms of hit points, but that cruiser there, or whatever that ship is, maybe it's a battleship, I honestly didn't notice. Cruiser, yeah, he provided us some spaced armor. We citadel the Odin, proving once again that the guns are fine, or they're as good as they can be even without accuracy buffs. Akatsuki 8 kilometers away from us. We're sort of waiting to see if our secondaries can hit him, and they can, so we pop the secondaries consumable once more. The Akatsuki is very far away. I think he is maneuvering. You can see the secondaries don't have too much of a problem hitting him. We're able to let them do their thing as the Akatsuki disappears momentarily. We're going to fire at the Edinburgh, but here comes the Akatsuki around the corner again, and the secondaries are going to open up just as the consumable runs out. And we shoot our main guns, but they don't kill him. The secondaries do. Another close quarters expert. So there's a sampling for you of the secondary guns in action, and an overview of the update and my thoughts on it. In summary, I am so thrilled that this is the case now. I think the secondaries work so much better than they ever did before, and the Bismarck is now a much more fun ship to use. We'll have a look at the gross occur first as soon as I can get a video for it, but that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.